Welcome into the 90 plus 2 podcast. I'm Sammy St.Jean, and that is Jeremy Striano, and that is someone we're going to introduce in 2 seconds. But this is the crossroads between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point and episode 4 now. Starting to get a little bit of a roll here. A roll enough to bring on our first guest. Philip, introduce yourself for us.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. My name's Philip Galati. I'm a native of Massachusetts at heart, so a Revolution fan. But I grew up watching Frank Lampard. I started my playing career, however short it was, as a midfielder. So a Chelsea fan through and through. Love the team. Used to love the direction they were going. But I play the sport. I referee the sport. I do play-by-play for the sport. I do it all. Absolutely love it. And really excited to be here.
Phil, before we move on, give me your favorite Revs player of all time. I'm just curious.
Lee Win.
Okay, love that answer. That's a solid answer.
All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to start with Champions League football, go into talking a little bit of Chelsea, and then Philip, since it's a beautiful day in Syracuse, is going to go actually play up some pickup for himself and enjoy the beautiful weather. So we're going to let him go, and then we'll round out the episode. But without further ado, let's jump into Champions League action. Let's start with what I would say is probably the least interesting contest of the four, and that's Inter and Benfica. It was an interesting game. Inter got the nod. They got the win. But oddly enough, Benfica, they had their moments. They outshot Inter. Inter had just more on target, looked better in the final third overall. But again, it seemed a lot to Inter succeeded with their defenders and their midfielders. They won a lot more duels. They won a lot more aerial duels. And they had 17 interceptions during the course of the game. So, and I want to give a real big nod there to Alessandro Bastoni. He was incredible. Darmian also stood out on that back line. And in general, though, Onana has been incredible over this entire Champions League. He's really stood on his head. And then I just love Barella. He didn't play like outstanding in that game. He was good, but I just want to bring him up just because I like Barella. So I'll throw it to you, Jeremy, first. Any comments on that contest? Any takeaways?
All right, so the first one, I was really high on Gonzalo Ramos last week. He's been a 3-star, one of my former 3 stars of the week, but I can tell Kearney, New Jersey is not very happy with this result. Kearney, New Jersey's filled with a really high Portuguese population, and it's really split amongst the big 3 clubs. We're talking Porto, Sporting, and Benfica. But the one name that stands out in our notes here is Matteo Darmian, because that gentleman used to don the red and black of Man U. And am I a little salty that like he's standing out on like the Champions League stage? A little, I'll admit, it does stink, we're coming off of a weird United result that we'll get into later. But it's good to see, players that move on from United kind of excel. Like I'm hoping that trend continues with names like Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay. But Sammy, I want to throw it real quick before we get to Phil. You and I, since we met, have been talking about Bastoni to Tottenham. Is that a fever dream now, or is that, do you think that still happens?
I am probably as negative about my club as we might find Philip is about Chelsea. So my belief that Bastoni wants to come to Tottenham now that we no longer have an Italian manager is very, very low.
That's fair.
I'm going to cross every single finger I have and pray we can even have our hat in the ring for a Bastoni or a Pau Torres or just a quality center back. Because if I have to watch Eric Dyer play for another season, I'm gonna lose it.
Let's get to Phil before you rant again.
Yeah. Any comments on Inter Benfica, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point about Darmian just kind of illustrates Inter's place in the greater ecosystem of European soccer, because in Italy, of course, it's a league that is very defensive heavy, very midfield minded. That's where you see a lot of really great Italian players stand out. But with Inter, you have so many different players going there and really finding a second, sometimes third win in their career, like Darmian, like Lukaku to an extent. Even you could argue Alexis Sanchez. Can you even tell?
That's a great reference.
A little bit of a USMNT mood recently. But yeah, no, the Serie A this season is kind of wrapped up and over with. So I've definitely got my eyes on Inter in terms of making a Champions League run. I don't think they'll beat any team in the final, but we'll see.
And the Serie A is interesting right now in general. Me and Jeremy will get into that later in the episode, but that battle for the top four is getting pretty interesting. Napoli seem to be clear, even though they're in a weird spot with their club at the moment just because of Osimhen's injury. But in general, that battle for the top 3 and 4, you've got Roma on 53, AC Milan on 52, and Inter on 51 points, all with the same games played. So it is a tight battle with surprise Lazio in second. So a real nice battle there in the Serie A, but I think it's time to move on to our second Champions League game, Man City and Bayern. This one was honestly, if you have any vengeance, Phil, towards Tuchel, this was a great time for you. This would have been a lovely watch. But Bayern, they started decent. They had a decent start, but the Rodri goal really seemed to turn the game on its head. And then City really took over, had a lot more chances on target. And again, it seemed like this moment where Bayern didn't have that number 9 again. And it seems that this keeps coming up for them. Is they'll be very competitive in moments, but that final finishing touch, they don't have that quality in the final third. They didn't have Motang, so that hurts as well. But I also hated the decision making in terms of the starting lineup that Tuchel went with. Starting Gnabry as a 9 made very little sense to me. You have Sadio Mane, although he's going through some stuff off the field or on the field now too. But he would have, I thought, been the better choice for a 9. I mean, I think he would have made more sense at least than Gnabry. But you don't start Thomas Muller. You don't start João Cancelo against his old club. Like, there are a lot of things. And they've been in the media talking about how important João Cancelo could be to their future project. Some stuff not aligning right now with Chelsea. But again, Upamecano, a shocker in that one. He had a very, very poor game. But again, this is something we talked about last week. Racist response to this stuff is just not necessary. We got into it a lot last week, so I'm not going to hammer it home, but like really he had a bad game. Get over it. Like, I understand the Bayern fan base is passionate. I understand German fans in general are passionate about their clubs, but like, come on. That's it's time to start figuring this stuff out. Like, I don't want to get into it too much, but yeah, as bad as he played, he doesn't deserve any of the backlash that he's gotten from the fans. But another player that struggled, Alphonso Davies, he was pretty poor as well. But I'll throw it to you now, Jeremy. Any comments on this one?
Man, you know what? I think going forward, I need to stop making predictions. I was so high on Bayern. I really was. I remember right when the round of 16 came out, I went, okay, Bayern to the UCL final. I'm gonna lock it right now. Not the case. And when it's Man City doing it, to me personally, it's like, same stuff, different day. You know what I mean? I've seen the success. I've seen the growth of City right before my very eyes, and it's very annoying. It really is. But as a neutral, as a soccer fan, how talented are they, right? Like, I love Pep Guardiola as a manager. I really do. There were times where I envied a manager like Pep before ETH took over United, because I'm loving what Ten Hag's doing in his first year. But in the days of David Moyes and Louis van Gaal and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I wanted Pep. I wanted a manager like Pep, and it didn't happen. But the quality of City is just, it's evident. And I think they're, part of me doesn't want them to, I want them to continue the streak of like losing the UEFA League, UEFA Champions League final. I want to see them, kind of, crumble and fall. But I think they're setting themselves up for success. I really do. I think they're the favorites coming out of the first leg here. What do you think, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, the short of it is I don't see a team that's beating Man City in the final. And the long of it is Bayern looked uncharacteristically poor on the ball in the defensive third. I mean, you talk about really the kings of the Bundesliga, where it's all really, really quick play, building it out from the back. And they couldn't do that. And it was just wild to me that, the basics that make Bayern tick completely fell apart. Where, if you're going to beat Man City, you have to master the basics, and then you have to master whatever the heck the game plan is. So that was really shocking, I think, especially for Thomas Tuchel, whom I have a soft spot for. I think he was let go way too soon, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But I didn't really get a lot of retribution from seeing him lose like that, because it didn't come down to a game plan. It came down to individuals collectively letting themselves down.
And I think that's too why he was brought in. He was brought in to fix that trend of Bayern players seeming to let themselves and let the team down. I know there's a costly error from Pavard that was just like shocking to see from that side. But I want to get kind of a knee-jerk reaction here in terms of you guys. Do you think they should have kept Julian Nagelsmann, or was it the right choice to move on ahead of this leg against Man City?
It's tough. I mean, I'm a fan of like sticking it out to the end of the year. Just because, I like starting things over during the transfer window or right before that. So like June. I think June's the perfect time to bring in a new manager, reset the ship, try to get, as many players as you can to fit that manager system. But obviously the board thought that, it was time for a change, and they brought him in with a winner. I think they brought Tuchel in, knowing that, they're going to compete for the Bundesliga every year, and they were in a decent spot for Champions League. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Personally, no, but they did it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And look, my viewpoint is skewed because my club has had 12, 11 managers in 11 years. And it's just crazy how leadership at Chelsea is so quick to kick coaches to the curb, both with Boli and with Abramovich to an extent. So I have become so sick of the constant turnover. I couldn't even imagine what it's like as a player. You're finally starting to get in the groove of somebody, and 2 or 3 bad matches later, see ya. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I agree wholeheartedly that you should really be sticking a season out. And then if the club wants to go in a new direction, I think as long as you've still got the locker room on your side, go for it.
All right. So final note on this one was about the Leroy Sané Sadio Mane issue post game. Sadio Mane catching the lip of Leroy Sané after an altercation post game. And although after watching that game, I cannot blame either of them for being frustrated. I will say overall, I thought Sané was probably the best player on that Bayern side, at least in terms of the attacking final third. I thought he probably had the most going forward, but overall, I understand the frustration. Obviously, physical altercations are never the reason. So it seems that Sadio Mane is going to be suspended for a game against Hoffenheim, which Jeremy and I will get to later on. Do you guys have any comments on this, or should we go to AC Milan happily?
I mean, this kind of reminds me of, remember the days of All or Nothing when Tottenham was being shown on Amazon, and I believe it was Dele Alli and Sonny were getting into it. Eric Dyer was getting into it. Now, less physical. It definitely happens. I thought personally that Sadio Mane was like well respected amongst teammates and coaches and managers and clubs in general. This shocked me. Like, I remember looking at you when this I think Fabrizio, like you and I both have him on Twitter, like notifications on. Shout out the GOAT. Here we go. But it surprised me. I was like, wow, like punch in the face, like not just shoving, not like, verbal altercation. He punched him in the mouth or caught him on the lip, whatever. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, suspended 1 game. Is 1 game going to be enough? Is one of them going to leave? Like, are they going to how do they regain each other's trust? That's where I want to know.
Yeah, and according to reports that I saw, they were training together this morning, and they apologized to their teammates, and they swept it under the rug. And yeah, especially with Mane in particular, you can sweep the dust under the rug, but if there's already 4 or 5 feet of dust underneath it, then there's a bigger problem at hand.
Right.
No, I completely agree. And it'll be interesting too, just in terms of like, I feel like they need that injection of just quality into their attacking play, and incorporating him, getting him on the right foot. I know he was coming off of injury from all that stuff, but again, very weird story to have come out after that one, although it was a disappointing game. But let's move over to Italy. This one was an interesting contest. AC Milan getting the win over Napoli. And this was something that, knowing that Osimhen wasn't going to play, I don't think is any surprise necessarily to anyone. This team Napoli's been out of sorts since Osimhen's injury, which you can't blame him. He's the best player, at least again in the attacking third. Magnan was fantastic for AC Milan. He was truly incredible. I love watching Tonali. I love me some Rafael Leao. He's been incredible. Benaher was also very good. But give Napoli credit. They created some chances. They had some more possession in that game. They had 10 corners, but they were, in a way, shooting themselves in the foot. 6 yellows, later a red card, which came from a second yellow. And now it looks like they won't have any Kim and Jae for next leg. So they're in a very peculiar spot now, going into that second leg. So kick it to Jeremy first. Any thoughts on this tie?
Yeah, right. We went from Bayern City because last week I say, oh, Bayern is going to take control of UCL. They dropped 3-0. We talk about Napoli. The one player I would love United to sign is Kim and Jae. And sure enough, the week I praise him, he gets sent off, right? Or he gets suspended for the next leg. So yeah, Sammy, you're gonna make predictions for the rest of this show in its entirety. I'm going to be quiet. I'm not going to predict anything regarding Man United, the Red Bulls, or United States men's national team. I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I actually
your lock started out 3-0. To be fair, your
lock I did, yeah. Like my locks have been decent, right? And proud about that. But it's like the my points. Like I don't know. I guess I'm not a great pundit. I'm not a great analyst.
Does Jeremy overall not know ball? Does Jeremy?
I don't know. I don't know if I know ball, man. Dude, I'm a Carney fraud. Jeez. But no. Realistically, I like AC Milan. I like the way. I just love their system. And can we start putting Leao on the same pedestal as Vinicius Jr. in terms of like elite young wingers, or is that a little too?
Pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, he's on the right track, I would say.
He's on the right track, but
not there yet.
He's got some hardware already, and
yeah,
he's not getting worse anytime soon.
I know, but he's just a fun young player to watch. Like I think,
I agree.
I agree. Like he's just someone that could just take control of the game, and it seems that when AC or Milan, I mean, I call him AC because there's Inter, right? So when AC need a big play, I think you put the ball, to Leao. But Philip, any takeaways from this all Italian matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Napoli have played so well this season, and I'm happy for them. Although I will say I can't be too happy because I have a lot of family from Milan, and we root for AC. So kind of happy that they got the dub. I didn't watch much of the game because I was watching the other one, but the goal I saw was very scrappy, and I think that speaks to how good Napoli have been despite maybe missing some pieces. But I mean, full credit to the superior Milan.
And Milan's one of those teams that seems to be finding their footing at the right time, and they're also doing so in the Champions League. In league, they've been a little inconsistent. Their last game they had numerous chances, numerous shots on goal, and still couldn't score. I don't even think they gave up a shot on just shot period in their last game. Yet still drew 0-0. But never mind. We'll move on to what was probably the most enticing game, and will be our subtle transition into talking Chelsea. Real Madrid and Chelsea, a 2-0 win for Real Madrid. If you look at the XG, it agrees with that outcome. Chelsea, and Philip will have a response to this comment because we talked about it before we started recording. Chelsea showed flashes at the beginning of both halves. They showed some slight promise. At the very beginning of the first half, I was more impressed. I thought they came out of the gates well. And then Philip's already shaking his head, but I thought they started the first 10 to 15 minutes. I thought they actually looked pretty solid, and I was very worried about my 4-1 prediction. Obviously that didn't come through, but at least Real Madrid got the win, and my prediction, unlike Jeremy's today, had been correct. So Lampard, I thought he was onto something with the 3-5-2 when I was writing these notes, and then just threw that out the window as the game went on. Bad turnovers seemed to be really impactful for Chelsea. Some really bad turnovers. I think it's incredible that Silva's as good as he still is at his age. I think his quality, and given the squad that he's playing in, Chelsea's not at their best right now. They are not at the peak that he's seen them, yet he's still delivering. He's playing very, very well. I don't really rate Kepa, but I thought he was fantastic. I thought he had a really good game overall. Kept the game at least respectable, despite also going down a man. But the only stats that Chelsea led in this game were aerial duels, keeper saves, possessions lost, and red cards.
Yeah, just stick that last one in there. Sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the wound. Here's the salt. We get it. Okay. All right.
But final comment for me is that I just love this Real Madrid midfield. I know they're old, but they seem timeless. They continue to produce. Cruz and Modric are ageless wonders. Love Valverde. But actually, we're gonna go to Philip first on this one.
Yeah.
I wanna.
I don't know if I'm gonna get a word in. We're gonna let Philip just take this one.
Philip, we're gonna get to like all the general stuff on Chelsea
Okay.
later, but try to keep it to this match, and then you can rant on everything else in a few minutes.
Got you. Well, this match, the thing that struck me the most about this match, I remember getting my Dunkin' and sitting down and watching the screen, and the first thing I saw was, where the heck is Koulibaly? Like, he was always, it seemed like, higher than the midfield line. Like, he was just pressing so high and diving into every challenge. Like, if you're gonna press that high, you can't be going to ground, you can't be committing to tackles, you can't be playing the guessing game. So the Chelsea defense was just all over the place because this guy was out in no man's land. And of course, his substitution, Marc Cucurella, was no better. Starts doing the same thing, gets caught out, ball over the top. Chilwell has to come across, makes a split-second decision. It's a poor decision. We're down to 10. All because of Cucurella, because of Koulibaly. Like, I wish that he brought on Trevor Chalobah earlier because I thought he played pretty well. Again, Silva is timeless. I don't know where we'd be without him. Fofana was I don't understand putting Joao Felix and Raheem Sterling as a strike partnership because they just don't play well together yet. They don't. Joao Felix did a little bit of a better job holding the ball. Sterling looked apprehensive on the break. He looked apprehensive to break in the first place. But I'll be honest, neither of them have the build to play a number 9 against Antonio Rudiger, against David Alaba. Like, it was set up to fail. And part of that you can blame on Frank. I have a soft spot for him because I think he got the job the first time around a little bit before he was ready, and he was let go a little bit too soon. And at this point, it's just like, well, let's see what he can do with the last couple games. Like, the expectations are really, really not lofty for him. But I was really, really shocked with Koulibaly in particular because he was not cheap. Nobody on this team was cheap. And to be venturing that far forward that often and not get the ball most of the time, I don't get it. I don't.
All right, Jeremy.
So the one positive, we're going to keep continuing this trend here, is Thiago Silva. I mean, first of all, when you have a grime song named after you by the legendary artist named Dave, you've already made it in life, right? And it's such a banger of a song, to be fair. But real quick, because I want to get into what's the tea, my only point is, Sammy, last week I kept beating this drum of, Real Madrid gaining back their old identity, right? From the 90s to 2000s, they were this dominant power force of a worldwide name. Like, they were just this, probably one of the most dominant teams ever. If you look back at the whole historical spectrum of football, if they get this series done, like if they get the second leg and complete it, this is, I think, to me, a really big stepping stone and just bringing their old identity back. Apart from what's going on with La Liga, it's a tight, the race is there with Barca and everything, blah, blah, blah. But, you and I were very passionate about, like, the negatives of what Barca has done unto the sport itself. So I feel like you and I are kind of, rooting for Madrid to kind of, I mean, you're kind of rooting for Atleti, but, I would say that, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I think, to me, once they get this done, if they do get this done in the second leg, this is the building block of Real Madrid. Forget about the days of Ronaldo and all that. Their identity is back.
I think Real Madrid being good is good for football in more exciting. That's
I
more
agree.
what I'd say. But I also, the reason I root for Atletico is Griezmann's one of my favorite players and easily top 3 favorite player. That's really all it comes down to. And they have a lot of other players that I like. I love Correa, I like DePaul. And then Tottenham seems to be unloading all of their players to them as well. So if I'm ever bored and want to see Dougherty play football again, I can just throw on an Atletico game. But one thing about most soccer podcasts is I don't think they keep their host honest about their predictions. So Jeremy, I'm gonna out both of us for not being very good with our Champions League predictions real quick.
No, they were bad. They were bad.
Yeah. So we're gonna start Inter Benfica. Obviously, Inter won. Jeremy and I both had Benfica winning by a goal.
Yep.
Different scores, but yeah, we were both wrong. They were in Portugal, Philip. Stop giving us a reaction. Come on now. Fair enough. Uh, so So it was Man City Bayern.
Oh,
I had a 2-2
jeez.
draw. Jeremy had a Bayern win.
Yeah.
So at least I was a little less wrong, but still wrong.
Yeah, that's
Still
so
3
wrong.
goals wrong, actually.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Real Madrid Chelsea. I had a 4-1 win. Jeremy got this one exactly correct. It was 2-0 for
Nail on
Jeremy.
the head,
So
man. 2-0.
right on the head there. Good
Thank you,
job.
Philip. I know. I'm sorry. I'm
He
sorry.
had more faith in Chelsea than I did. I was yeah. And then the final one was Milan and Napoli. I had 2 predictions because without
I had a
Osimhen, I
draw.
thought it was very different. So you had a draw. If
Mhm.
Osimhen play, I had a draw. Without Osimhen, I had a Milan win 3-1. Not the right score, but they won. So obviously, don't listen to Jeremy and I. I don't even know why you listen
Yeah,
to this
we're
podcast
terrible.
at this point. We don't know ball. All right. So it's time for our favorite section. What's the tea? And this is going to be the Phillips show for 5, 10, 15 minutes or so. But I want to start first here, and we'll kind of go step by step. I want to start first with the squad, Philip, as a whole, before we get to the managers. What do you like about this team, and what do you think needs work in terms of overall quality? Because the biggest story over the past, I guess, calendar year has been about the money spent by Chelsea, spent by Bowley, who they brought in, the big names, João Felix, etc. What do you like? What do you don't like? And why do you love Conte?
First of all, everybody loves Conte because the whole 70% quote, and he's just a good guy. If you don't know his story, go look it up. That dude is the definition of working toward your dreams from nothing. I have been very pleased with how Chilwell has played. Most recent outing aside, I've been pleased with Enzo so far and the way he sees the field. Sometimes he tries the pass that isn't on. Sometimes you got to try that pass. You're gonna fail. It happens. He works back. I'm a little bit of a Havertz homer. A lot of Chelsea fans are starting to turn on him. I'm holding out hope because we did that to Timo and absolutely ruined his career, I think. Who knows what the deal with Pulisic is? I don't even wear my Pulisic. I'm a USMNT Pulisic jersey. My Chelsea Pulisic jersey is in the back of the closet. I don't understand. For me, the pieces are there. They're there. Okay. We've spent way too much money. We spent too much money to bring Potter in. We spent too much money to force him to leave early. I don't get how deep Bowley's pockets are. And I don't get how him throwing away all this money and not realizing that something has to change hasn't set in yet. Somebody's got to hit him over the head with a 2x4 at this point if he's going to ever wake up. Because it's just not working. I don't understand. Again, Potter was not huge on the hire. Still think he was shown the door too early. I know he was not doing well, but 6 months in the Premier League, 206 days. It cannot happen to Chelsea. It cannot happen for a top team to sustain any sort of confidence in the players, any sort of confidence from the players into the board. It's not good. Everything is breaking down. Players are playing where they're not supposed to be. When Pulisic plays, well, at least under Potter, he's playing defense. Sterling as an out-and-out 9. Felix as an out-and-out 9. It's not the recipe for success. I don't think we need to spend any more money. I do. I know Koulibaly stinks. We'll move around him for a minute. Enzo is a good signing. Raheem has quality. João Felix has quality. Havertz has quality somewhere in there. You've got young guys. Mason Mount, maybe not as much anymore, but Trevor Chalobah played well. I think he has some potential. Conor Gallagher, the jury's still out on for me. I think most Chelsea fans don't really rate him that much. I think he's still pretty young, and I'd love to see him get more playing time somewhere else. But I think the pieces are there, and I really don't think we need to spend any. If you're going to bring somebody in, bring in a new defender, honestly, or forward, one of the two. But we don't need any more money spent in this club. What we need the board to wake up and realize that money doesn't fix all problems. It can buy antidepressants, but it can't buy a winning soccer team. And at some point, the results have to come from the players on the field. It's watching them. Nobody has confidence. Nobody wants to take anybody on in the dribble. The defensive communication is almost always lacking. The midfield in transition just looks confused. I don't understand what's going on, honestly. I don't think anybody does. And I think if somebody does, then they need to come take our head coaching job immediately. I would love to see a Julian Nagelsmann there. I would love to see Luis Enrique there because those are both managers who have had experience playing with players that are some of the best in the world. And I think we have some players that are some of the best in the world. I'm not saying the best, I'm saying some of the best. And they can find weaknesses in those players and maybe not turn them into positives, but maybe just turn them down a little bit. Because I feel like when I watch Chelsea, a lot of the damage we do is self-inflicted. And it's not really teams outplaying us. It's more us rolling over and just not playing to the level that is demanded, not expected, demanded by the history of this team and the fan base and the amount of money that is continually going into this club and seemingly vanishing into thin air.
Philip, real
That's all I
quick.
got.
Yeah, that was, spot on. But
Step off your soapbox. You can come off it now.
Yeah, I'll just
yeah,
take a step down.
real quick. My one question for you. The three of us, we support clubs that really have had a revolving door of managers. Obviously, myself with United, you with Chelsea, Sammy with Tottenham Hotspur. But it seems as if like Chelsea, it's a little more emphasized. I don't know if it's happened more. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. But why do you think that is? Like with the impatience of the board, like just like a quick oh, if you mess up once, you're done. Why do you think it's that big of a deal over in London?
I think a large part of it comes from the precedent set by Abramovich, especially early on, where he was putting in tons of money into this club and he didn't see immediate results. And so one manager gone, one manager gone, one manager gone. I mean, Jose Mourinho, like his whole deal is that after 3 years he's expired anyways, so out the door. Lampard really wasn't given too much of a shot, and again wasn't set up for success either. Tuchel, way too quick. I mean, even you could talk about managers like Conte or Gus Hiddink, who as soon as the level of play starts to drop a little bit, then I think what it is, it's honestly they just hit the panic button. It's like, we're not winning every game. We're not City, we're not Barcelona when they used to be respectable. Get them out of here. Like, I just don't know why they're so quick to panic, especially now because managers would get fired after a poor run of a couple games. And now we're having managers that start their careers in a poor couple of months. And it's just like, well, now what? Right?
Just get a few more thoughts from you, Philip. First, I want to ask about the number 9 situation because you talked about it a little bit. It's not Sterling. It's not João Felix, although they are quality players. And I will say Sterling looked disinterested in the last game. It wasn't even just like not good. He looked disinterested. So I want to ask, if you don't think the team should spend money, like you just said, what do you think they should do to resolve the issues in the final third with that number 9 position?
Tough. Because with Chelsea, I feel like you either spend hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't at all. It's not like, we can get one player. In an ideal world, we get one player to be a defender or a striker, but I don't want to keep setting this precedent, so I'll stick to my guns and say I think Havertz could do well there. Maybe not as an out and out number 9, but I think he's the best option for playing with his back to goal. I think he's the best option for distribution, and he can play a little bit like Messi used to with that false 9. Then the question becomes, who surrounds him? Sterling is a fine winger when he's on form. Joao, I feel like, could be utilized in that wing role because he's got such good foot skills. Lord knows if he'll ever play Pulisic again, but Havertz has typically been a little bit more midfield minded, but with Conte back, with Enzo in there, and with Kovacic, by the way, playing fantastic. I don't think I mentioned him earlier. I'm wondering if you push Kovacic up just a tiny bit, and then you force Havertz to play with his back to goal, drop as a false 9 a little bit. I was watching the game yesterday, and I remember turning to my buddy and going like, "We need a striker," and he's like, "Well, who do you got?" I'm like, "Ooh." Like, I'm like running through the strikers in my mind. Like, well, we sold Werner and we sold Lukaku and sold Tammy Abraham, and it's looking pretty grim. So, I'm not sure on the simple answer, but I feel like Havertz has proven his quality, and maybe his form isn't there, but possibly playing that false nine position. He's got the shot. He's got the field vision. He's got the IQ.
So I want to ask this, and I don't want you to explain your answer. I want like literally just the name. If you could have one player to plug in as an actual number 9 for Chelsea, who would it be?
Like anyone, like a realistic goal, or just like anybody, like Holland, like anybody, like a realistic goal.
Within reason, and I say within reason, knowing that Chelsea financially will throw money at anybody. So there's a lot of players that are within reason, just within reason that people will actually sell them to you.
Right. My heart, my soul wants me to say Victor Osimhen. I just don't think he'd ever leave.
To compete with us, pal.
Yeah.
And then last Chelsea question for you, and this is going to be on the coaching situation. I'm going to go on a limb, say Frankie Lampard's not the long-term solution. I don't think he's going to be a long-term solution, even if you are a fan of him as a former player. And I personally would like to see him seat as a manager. I just don't think it's going to be at Chelsea. Right. If there's any manager that can fix this situation, and I want to hear an answer in terms of like who's available, but then I also want to hear if there's a manager there that you actually think, even if he's not available, that would be the right guy that's not named Pep, because that would be everybody's answer. Mm-hmm. Who do you think would be the right guy to put at the helm of this Chelsea squad, given what you have?
Well, I mean, the current debacle seems to be between Enrique and Nagelsmann. And I know I heard a rumor that Enrique's representatives actually went to Chelsea and put together a PowerPoint on him and presented it to the board, which is hilarious, first of all, if it's true. And I think they're both quality. I think what it comes down to is every manager wants a job if you're out of work, right? Everybody wants a job, period, right?
For Pochettino, he seems very comfortable in it.
Yeah, he's enjoying a little vacation.
But like, it's not that we need a manager that wants a job. It's that we need a manager that wants to fix Chelsea. And I know Nagelsmann has had some great experience with really high caliber players and has been able to turn a lot of players into not only stars of his squad, but going from, they play okay in the Bundesliga to, oh, hey, they're getting capped for their national team. They're international talking points now. I need somebody that's going to invest faith long-term, which is a big ask. It is a monumental, gargantuan ask, because it doesn't seem like the board puts long-term faith in pretty much anybody. But I'm still holding out hope for Julian Nagelsmann.
All right. And I hear there's a guy named Antonio Conte that's variable, who's really known for his ability in long-term projects. But
yeah, him and Michy Batshuayi, run it back to, what was it, 2016? Run it back.
All right. But that's going to do it for our Chelsea talk. Philip, we'll let you go and enjoy your pickup game. Thank you so much for joining us. Next time Chelsea have a manager change or sometime after the end of the season, we'll have to bring you back on. But thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
All right. So now that we are moving on from Chelsea, we're going to move on to complaining about Tottenham. One more time, it's going to be a lot shorter than normal. Just a couple more comments. One was a report that Brendan Rodgers is not a top candidate, and I have a major issue with that. I think he should be in the conversation, especially when your top target that I've heard conversations about is Madison, who has a great relationship with Brendan Rodgers. Thought just like dots that connect, that would make sense, but Tottenham doesn't do things that make sense. Second thing is that I am very much actually thinking Vincent Kompany should be the top choice with what he's doing with Burnley and what he's done with Burnley. And they're already promoted the 7 games. He has really turned that club around. And I would not hate Tottenham if they're actually going to invest in a project. Not like it's the same conversation that's happening with Chelsea. Will they actually sit there and invest in a project? If they're going to, I think Vincent Kompany would be a worthwhile one as a young up-and-coming manager that has a lot of promise and has had a lot of early-on success. You get him at the helm, let him ride, and go. I think that would be interesting. There's been more reports about the interest in Madison. It seems that Tottenham is actually interested in Madison, but they're not really going to go forward with it without a new manager. So, again, you got to fill in that gap. And then final comment is actually about Harry Kane. So I've been thinking about this a lot. And what I've realized is that if Harry Kane isn't going to stay beyond this season, or like he doesn't want to stay beyond this season, and that no matter what happens next season, if he has decided he's going to go, Daniel Levy needs to push his feelings aside and sell. And I understand the reluctance to want to sell a player like Harry Kane, but you can't let him go for free in 2 years. It's either sell him this summer or he commits long term. There can't be that alternative like middle ground where Tottenham just like rides out a player that's worth 100 million and doesn't get that revenue back in. It's just that's a lose-lose situation if you do that. So I think they need to get a firm answer of what Harry Kane wants. Harry Kane has done enough for Tottenham where you actually should be willing to give him what he wants because he owes nothing left to Tottenham. Tottenham owes him everything at this point. And I want them to make the reasonable choice that if he does not want to stay and he's not going to stay beyond next season, sell him this summer so you can actually get close to, if not 100 million for him. Final point there. Jeremy, any response to that? Are you good?
The only thing I have, like, I really like your point on Vincent Company. The only thing I have, and this might be, a little bit of a gut punch to you, as someone who's interested in him taking over the Tottenham project. The only thing I think that's keeping his spot with Burnley right now is I think they want him to get some Premier League reps with Burnley. See where they are with Burnley. Look, I get it. Like, I get the better job is Tottenham, right? It's, there's going to be more money. There's going to be more quality players. But there's a reason why Burnley sought him out from RSC Anderlecht over in Belgium. And they've achieved the first goal. The second goal, now remember this though, Sammy. Burnley was a team just a few years ago that was consistently staying afloat in that mid-table range. There was one year where Burnley was like contending for, I don't even know if Conference League was a thing yet, but like say they would have been like towards like Conference League. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I feel like Burnley had it one year where they had some decent runs in them. The only thing is, I think they want him to stay at the helm when he takes Burnley back to the Premier League. Yeah, they're going to win the championship. I think the race is pretty much over?
Yeah, I think it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, that's the only thing keeping me from linking him to Tottenham. I get you wanting him, I really do. It's just realistically, I think they're like, okay, like we didn't just bring him here to like sell him to Tottenham or to let him go to Tottenham. But again, that's his choice. If he wants to do that, be our guest.
Yeah. Just to update you, Burnley's 14 points clear at the top of Sheffield.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
But moving forward, Jeremy, this is your takeover section about the Red Bulls issue. So I'll just hand over the reins for this one.
Okay. First of all, I want to apologize to my family, my friends, because this was a mistake that I made on my part. Not knowing that this was going to happen, I'm saying, I didn't know this was going to happen. Before coming back or during spring break, I was home and I told you that I went to one of the Red Bulls home games when they played Columbus, and the Red Bulls ended up winning 2-1. And a player by the name of Dante Van Zier, who we just purchased from RSG in Belgium, scored the game-winning goal. And when we came back and started this podcast, I believe it was episode 1, I said, Dante Van Zier needs to be an everyday player for this club. I thought he possessed this really great jolt and jump that was needed in the Red Bulls offense, especially up top. There was, ever since we let go, or ever since Bradley Wright Phillips was let go by the Red Bulls, he didn't retire a Red Bull. He ended up playing in LA, and I want to say he played for somewhere else, but he played for LAFC for a little bit before retiring. Ever since BWP left the Red Bulls, there has been this question mark, like who's going to play up top? Who's going to play up top? They tried it with Patrick Klimala, signing him from Celtic, but it was just abysmal. They tried with homegrown products and Tom Barlow. Tom Barlow is not my favorite homegrown product for the Red Bulls, but they went out and bought Van Zier, and I was like, okay. He was the Belgian B League, Golden Boot winner at one point. before RSG got promoted, because RSG was playing Europa League football. During this past weekend's game against San Jose, there was an altercation on the field with apparently Van Zier and another San Jose player. I'm blanking on the name. And it was a topic, it rolls around a topic that you and I have touched upon. And there was some racial tension, and there was apparently a slur used from Van Zier to the San Jose player. And it's one thing when this is happening in the sport itself. It's another when your club is the perpetrator. I can blame this on one player. I can blame this on the board. I can blame this on the entire organization. Being a part of the Red Bull community, to me, is one of the passions in my life. I love our fans. I love being around fellow Red Bull fans. We're a special breed. We're crazy. We're in your face. We don't represent that. We don't. And I get it. Every club can say that they don't, because they should represent, they shouldn't represent that, right? But I speak on behalf of the Red Bull fans, the supporters who come out day in. Again, if I wasn't pursuing this career, if I wasn't here, I'd be there every game, Sammy. I'd be there every game. They're in my backyard. I love them. And I'm sick. I've never felt this uneasy being a supporter ever. There have been statements made by the supporter groups saying that we do not stand with this message. This game's for everybody. This game's for all. And it was made clear by the organization that Van Zier will be stepping away from the club until further notice. There has been no statement saying that he has been released. He's still under contract with the Red Bulls. He is just taking a leave of absence. I don't know if he's going back to Belgium. I don't know if he's staying here in the States. All I know is that he's not with the club right now. And yeah, when it sucks when you have pundits and media outlets talking about your club in a negative manner, because one bad apple just ruins the whole bunch. You know what I mean? It's embarrassing. It's man, I just had a lot of pent up aggression and anger, and I would yell. I don't want to yell because I want to be professional about it, but yeah, it really does suck when that's your club saying that, oh, your club signs racist players and what. No, we don't. But it just so happened that this had to happen, and it's a shame. I'm sorry for San Jose. I'm sorry for that player. I'm sorry for his family, because I'm sure you don't want to deal with anything like that. The right thing is for Dante, and look, I get it, he's a great player, but that crap can't be done. And I think the Red Bulls are taking the right path, and it's going to continue. Maybe he gets released, maybe he moves on. But yeah, I'm going to keep reiterating a message that you and I have promoted on the show. This does not belong here. This nonsense, I'm sick and tired of it, and I want it to end. Thank you for letting me express that, Sammy.
Yeah. Not in the direction of Lukaku, not in the direction of Upamecano, not from the players to another player. There's just no place for football, period. Yeah. But we can move forward there with that said. Mm-hmm. All right. So 3 more things quickly before we move into our around the league. Jeremy, I'm going to list all 3 things, and then you kind of respond to what you want to respond to, just so we can speed through it a little quickly.
Oh, yeah.
First one is Liverpool's out of the race with Bellingham. They really seemed to be the leading candidate for a while. And now it seems like Man United's hat's back in the ring as a result. It does still seem like it's a Real Madrid versus City actual battle, but United's name's been mentioned by some soccer journalists. The question I have isn't really about Bellingham. It's about Liverpool, is who should they bring in that midfield to actually fix it? Because the reason Liverpool is out of the race is because they just have too many first team players to eventually sign to be able to invest that much money into a Bellingham. The other two things I wanted to mention was Anthony Gordon is no longer going to be in the first team for Newcastle because of interdisciplinary issues. He was basically being a little brat. Really no other way to put it. Really no other way to put it. That's just he was. And then the final one is something I know you're going to comment on is Ben Foster shining for Wrexham. He was off his line, but we'll let it slide. And they got the win over Notts County. So probably expecting a response on the Liverpool and on the Wrexham comment, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, first I'll just get the Anthony Gordon point out of the way. He's been a little brat since he grew up in the Everton system. He was an Everton product who then just got sold this transfer window in January. Always a bit of a pest. And you know what was funny? When Newcastle purchased him from Everton, in his welcome video, they showed him fighting with his now teammates at Newcastle, when Everton played. This is the type of player he is. Does not surprise me one bit. But hopefully he comes back and kind of, maybe anger management is, in his future. Who knows? Real quick, shout out Ben Foster. I love Ben Foster. If you guys do not follow the cycling goalkeeper on YouTube, his content is amazing. It's revolutionary. You should watch his latest vlog from the Notts County game. It's incredible. He has a whole interaction with Ryan Reynolds after the game. It's pretty sick. Watching Welcome to Wrexham has now really boosted my fandom with Wrexham. I really want a kit. It's the hardest kit to find on eBay. It really is. I can't buy it on the Wrexham store. I don't know if they ship to the United States. I think they're sold out. I think the best bet is to just fly to Wrexham and get one there. But finally, here's the main point I wanted to touch upon. Jude Bellingham. Now, there has been talks. Actually, I don't know if you saw this today, but there's another midfielder that has been linked to 3 English clubs who currently plays in the Premier League and is McAllister from Brighton. So Brighton's basically saying that we expect him to leave, which is, I was expecting this. No disrespect to Brighton. They might get Europa League. They'll definitely get Conference League play, depending on, the outcome of this season. But this is the current trend in which players on lower to mid-table clubs, get sold because it's where they are at their cheapest. We're going to see it with Ward-Prowse. We're going to see it with James Maddison, and we're going to add Alex McAllister, even though Brighton isn't one of those teams battling for relegation. So I think wherever McAllister goes impacts the signing of Jude Bellingham. However, I still believe that Real is the number one option in play for Jude. You touched upon it, Sammy, earlier on in the show. Excuse me. You already love this midfield of Real Madrid, correct? Mm-hmm. Imagine it with Jude Bellingham. The best in the world.
The future of that midfield could be Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and Camavinga.
Oh,
and Valverde.
God. Yes, and they're all under the age of 26. They're our age, Sam. That's incredible. That's incredible. You and I are young, aspiring, say in the beginning of the podcast, we are young, aspiring journalists. We are 23, 24 years old. This midfield, man, I believe the oldest player might be, 23, 22? Insanity. This would give me, what this is going to give me, and I really hope all 4 of them, do stay, even though, one of them is going to be rotated. I think that'll probably be Camavinga.
He's played decent at left back too.
I know, so but I'm saying if they get Bellingham, right? this is going to be the old Xavi, Iniesta. I'm going to call it right now. Like this has the potential to be that type of midfield from those 2000 Barca teams.
Or maybe it'll just be a Cruz, Casemiro, Modric. I don't know.
I love Cassie. And you know what? Speaking of Casemiro, I did see a tweet from his agent today because there's a lot of speculation about, oh, is he going to stay at United? People are already saying like he's going to leave United. His agent came out and said, Cassie has signed 4 years for Man United and he wants to win trophies in Manchester. And I love that mentality because you know who had the same mentality? Rafa Varane. However, back to Bellingham. Would I love United to get him? Yes. I've already started plotting out midfield trios if United were to sign Bellingham in some odd circumstance. It would remind me of, man, I don't know if Man U have ever had this impact. I mean, maybe Pogba, like but it would still be better. It'd be better than Pogba. It would be better than signing Lukaku and signing Martial from Monaco. And to me right now, the biggest transfer that United has had is Casemiro. To me, the Casemiro one was unexpected and well-deserved because United needed a number 6 and they got one. So now your question is, where's your future with Sabitzer? I know there's talking about making him a
no, my question had nothing to do with Man U though. My question was about what should Liverpool do in their midfield.
Oh, well, sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, you're good. I completely understand the excitement about potential Bellingham coming in, but because that's still undecided, I want to know what Liverpool should do since their hat is out of the race officially.
I think Mount's a lock for them. I do. Because to me, in years past, their midfield has really been so, I don't want to say defensive, but it kind of like Fabinho, Hendo, like they really love that, like those hybrids in between a number 6 and a number 8. To me, at Liverpool, there really hasn't been a number 10 because I just don't think that's Klopp's system. You know, he kind of plays like a 4-3-3 defense, kind of like I'm trying to, use FIFA terminology, but like the way that the midfield kind of sets back, let someone like a Mason Mount come in and distribute. I wouldn't mind it. Am I the biggest fan of Mason Mount? He's to me, like he's a decent player. But maybe a change of scenery is good for some people, like if he dons the red and he goes up to Merseyside and plays for Jurgen Klopp, I really think he can thrive up there. I really do. And Mount's just playing victim of Chelsea just signing a lot of players and, they're going to have to sell. And when they keep signing, like, they signed Enzo for 100 mil. They still have Kovacic. They still have Conte coming back. Now it's Mason Mount being like, okay, well, if you guys keep signing players, my spot's going to be tarnished. So to me, let Jurgen Klopp develop a player like Mason Mount. Let him kind of revamp, the hype that he had around. I still think he's a talented player. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, maybe a change of scenery because Liverpool's focused so much at center back and they addressed that. And then they focused a lot at the wings and they've addressed that. Now it's in the middle. The only really big signing they've had, in the Klopp era was, to me, Thiago and Fabinho. But let's just say Mason Mount.
Yeah, the only one I was going to add to that was Mateus Nunes from Wolves. I thought he's someone that they've been targeting for a while. Had to give you the rap sign because we've been we talked about that way longer than we were supposed to.
Yeah, I know. I get on tangents. I should do a podcast or something.
All right, so we're gonna try to speed up the overall process going through the around the league just because we went long on that section. Start with the Prem. Big results from the past weekend: Newcastle over Brentford, Wolves over Chelsea, Spurs over Brighton. Thank God. Chelsea over Southampton, and then in the reverse, Arsenal drawing with Liverpool evens it out. Yes, Jeremy?
I called it. I did say result for Spurs. I'm just saying. You didn't believe in me, but I called it.
No, it's not that I didn't believe in you. I didn't believe in Spurs. It's very different.
Yeah.
So not a ton to talk about there, just in terms of like City pull it back within 6 points. Now they still have a game in hand and a game against Arsenal. So should those go in City's favor, we have a tie game going the rest of the way for the title race, so that should be interesting. But really, my only question in terms of games this coming up this week is if you have any interest in Newcastle Villa or Chelsea Brighton.
Ooh, those are two good ones. To me, if I'm gonna give the nod to someone, let's go Newcastle Villa. That'll probably be my game to watch, just because, I said it last week. I love what the Villains are doing, and then will Newcastle kind of keep that top four form? Because 3, 4, and 5 right now to me is up in the air. I still think I'll say United's spot isn't safe. Right now. Now, do I think they'll end up in Champions League? Maybe. But Villa is just one of those teams that just impress me. They'll always impress me in the middle of the table. So the other one's not too bad either. But to me, if I'm going to pick one or the other, I'm going to go with Newcastle Villa.
Yeah, the real question I think in that top four race is, does Spurs get their act together to make it race? That's really the question. Is Spurs going to be able to get enough results over the final 8 games to
without a proper manager?
Yes, yeah. That's really the question, because there isn't really a question around Newcastle or Man United in terms of they're going to get their points. They're going to have overall, I would say, like, you could probably bank on at least 4, maybe 5 wins out of their final 8 games. Like, there's going to be more wins than losses. Like, they've shown enough consistency to say something like that. You don't know with Spurs. You're gonna get a draw to Southampton. You don't know what kind of results you're gonna get. So that's really the question there. We can move over to La Liga. We'll be very quick here because there's really not a whole lot going on in La Liga, since the only thing really to battle for is 4th place, since Barca's comfortable at the top with the title. Real Madrid doesn't seem to care about the title because they're going for Champions League, and Atletico's in 3rd with a couple points of space. Villarreal beat Real Madrid, but again, they didn't seem that interested in that contest going into facing Chelsea. So, and then Barcelona drew at Girona, but again, if Real Madrid's going to lose, then it doesn't really matter what happens with Barca. So, still waiting to see if there's any sanctions with Barca and all their off and on the field issues. So there's that, but the only real games to potentially pay attention to: Real Sociedad and the Athletic Club, Villarreal and Valladolid, and Real Madrid and Espanyol. A couple games to pay attention to, but really nothing overwhelmingly exciting about those ties. Still favorable matchups for the teams that are in that top 4 battle. Honestly, I think we're just going to move on to Serie A because it's a lot more interesting. So the Serie A race is pretty interesting. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Napoli's clear, but Lazio's in 2nd. Roma has 1 point over Milan in 4th. And then Inter's in 5th, 1 point behind AC, with Atalanta and Juventus in the race behind them. Inter drew in their last games. Milan drew in their last game. Bologna beat Atalanta, which was big. Roma got a win against Torino, and Lazio beat Juventus 2-1 in last week's game. So that was pretty interesting. And then in terms of games this week, really overall, I think there's a lot of favorable matchups for these top teams. But you have the games there in front of you. I don't want to list them all off because they're all playing lesser teams overall. The only game I would say I'm personally paying attention to is both AC Milan, Bologna, and Napoli Verona, just because of their Champions League tie on the other side. Kind of want to see how they manage their squads. But other than that, in terms of the overall results, I would pick the favorites in most of those matchups.
Yeah, I would agree. The Atalanta Fiorentina, like those are two classic Serie A, like, mid-table. Like those are like your Newcastle Brightons, Aston Villas. So to me, and plus I just love watching Fiorentina because I'm a sucker for a purple uniform, and they just execute that very well. So if you want, we can move into Ligue 1.
Yeah, Ligue 1 is as irrelevant as usual, just in terms of having like an actual. Well, in terms of having an actual race, like
right.
Like PSG's now 6 points over Lens. They beat Nice last week. Lyon won. Lens won. So it's still again battle that 3-4 spot, trying to pay attention to whether Marseille, Monaco, Lille, or Rennes gets it. Lyon's still in the race at 7th. The only game I'm really looking at again is PSG Lens. What's going to happen in terms of that game, but that's the 1 and the 2 in terms of this table. But aside from that, everybody else really has a favorable matchup. So in terms of PSG Lens, which way do you think that one's going to go?
I backed PSG. I'm going to keep backing PSG just because I love their quality. However, I wouldn't mind seeing an upset. I want to see Lens, kind of contend as we get into late April or early May. But for this one, let's go 2-1 PSG.
I'm probably in the same boat. I think I'm going to say 3-1, but same situation. But I do agree. I think in you laugh at my reaction, but at the same time, I think Ligue 1 needs these other teams to get to PSG's level, or PSG to just not have Messi and Mbappe at the same time.
You're correct.
Because I don't think PSG overall as a team is that good. They just have too many top quality players to where they're not going to win. Like, they're going to win that league because of the quality they have. Like, if you took all of that talent in the Chelsea squad and put them in Ligue 1, they'd probably be 1 or 2, just because of the quality just far surpasses the teams they're going to face. But overall, I think I would just, in general, want to see that French league get a little more exciting to watch. The race just usually boils down to PSG winning and who's in second, third, and fourth. So we'll see that going forward. But one league that has gotten more interesting is the Bundesliga. Finally, it's about time. Bayern 2 points clear above Dortmund. Union Berlin is 5 points back of Dortmund in third. Leipzig in fourth. Freiburg on their heels in fifth. Leverkusen and Frankfurt hats still in the ring. Big results from this past weekend was a Dortmund win over Union Berlin. Bayern held on against Freiburg. Leverkusen 3-1 over Frankfurt, and Leipzig 1-0 over Hertha. Games this week: Leverkusen, Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, Mönchengladbach, and Bayern, Hoffenheim. I think the only game I'm going to pay attention to are those last two. Frankfurt, Mönchengladbach, I think it's just going to be a good game to watch. Doesn't overall, I think, affect the top 4 battle too much, but I think it's just going to be a good tie. And then the Bayern Hoffenheim game is just going to be interesting in terms of how does Tuchel get this team going in the right direction? Anything to add on that front, Jeremy?
No, you hit the nail on the head. I love that Frankfurt Mönchengladbach game for one reason. The battle of the strikers. I love Kolo Muani and I love Marcus Thuram. So getting to see the two of them, just battle it out, see which one kind of gives the notch to their respective clubs. And, how does Bayern respond after their thrashing against Manchester City without Sadio Mane? That's really the storyline for me.
All right, that'll be a wrap around the league. We kind of wanted to speed through that, so we had enough time for what was how do we put this, eventful Ted Lasso episode.
Definitely more than last week, yeah.
Yeah, this one started very slow for me, really not hooked for the first 20-30 minutes. And then it got really good.
Ooh,
and
yeah,
then it really got going. So it's very tough to go through this one in order, but I think the overall highlight I'll say before we kind of get into the weeds a little bit in terms of this was a Ted Lasso W.
Amen.
This was a big episode for him and his character. Had the face squirrel there. If you're watching this on Spotify, he's petting his mustache.
On YouTube. Yeah.
No, I was saying if you're watching on Spotify,
okay.
to clarify,
True. Get over to YouTube, see our beautiful faces too.
Oh, yeah. Or Jeremy's beautiful face and me in a tie.
Stop.
So Ted Lasso, he went through a lot in this. And again, clarification. If you did not watch the episode, skip this part.
Yeah.
Please and thank
Pause
you. We don't
or
want
skip
to be
ahead or just mute it. Until
or just go watch the episode and come back. That's also true.
That's also fair.
We don't want it to be spoilers, of course. But what I was saying, Ted Lasso W, you went through a lot. Obviously in the past 3 seasons, but this is one where seeing him properly handle a panic attack was huge.
Amen.
Especially too is like you, Jeremy, and I are 2 guys that have had our own mental health issues and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see a character that we've kind of really become invested in deal with these mental health issues and actually show a tangible moment where he overcame that moment of weakness. So that was really cool. And then the moment he had with his son, where his son was actually the bully, which I think that was when the episode got good, is when that got revealed. Him had that moment with his son where he kind of talked through it, and his son explaining how he apologized and understand like what was wrong. Like, I love that. But this episode in general for me was pretty weird the way it was constructed, because it starts with Rebecca in a situation where she has the prospect of something good happening. She could potentially have a kid, and she's still going off this like why am I blanking on the I'm blanking on the word. Someone who sees the future.
Medium
Yeah, that person you talk to. I'm just blanking on what they're
or
called.
like a psychic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
a
what we were not.
medium talks to dead people. I'm sorry.
Dude, I was thinking a philosopher, and I'm like, dude, that isn't it either. That is not it
She
either.
had a very intense meeting with Socrates. No.
Yeah, no. And love me some Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. But okay, back to something people actually want to hear about. So because she starts out with the prospect of that good happening, but also at the same time with like a lot of negative for other people because the conversation about Ted potentially being fired comes up. Keely's struggling with Shandy and her own love life. Zava's leaving the club. Like there's a lot of weird happening with the potential of something good happening to Rebecca. And all of a sudden, Zava leaves. And Rebecca now gets that sad news to near the end of the episode. Keely finds something I didn't see coming from left, right, center, or anywhere. And then all of a sudden, Ted delivers the best speech of today.
Oh my God.
That speech is, I also, not to spoil anything, but I made a personal request that is the quote of
Sammy's
the week.
giving
That
the reins to Sammy today. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have that one stored aside. That one was incredible. I loved every moment of it.
Amen.
But yeah, Jeremy, any response? Aside from saying, and we don't swear on this podcast, so I'm gonna internally bleep this out, but F Shandy. Good riddance. So happy to see her gone.
My first note was gonna be na 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 na. Hey. Goodbye. Thank God. Really, like, so satisfying when Keely fired her. Just to go kind of, rewind a little bit. Now, your first point was about Ted handling a panic attack. The two scenes in the show that really struck a chord with me were the Liverpool episode in season 1, which is my favorite episode. It's like a top 2 right now. My 2 favorite episodes are season 1, episode 7, where they go play Everton. They go to the karaoke club, and that's where we see Ted Lasso's first real panic attack at the karaoke club when Rebecca starts singing Let It Go, because that's when Michelle, his wife, delivers the divorce papers to him. My other favorite episode is when Roy Kent, it's the rom-com episode when Roy Kent accepts the coaching job finally. But there's 2 moments that struck a chord with me. The first is when we see his first panic attack, and the second one was this past week when he controls it. Look, you and I have admitted to dealing with our personal struggles. I've been there. There have been times where panic attacks have gotten the best of me, but then there's also times where, I've been taught, coping mechanisms and kind of control them myself. And now we're getting to see this strength from Ted. Ted used to be this like, out on a whim, happy-go-lucky, motivational, but now we're starting to see a little more power from Ted. I don't know about you, but like he swore in his speech. He's a very clean-cut All-American Kansas guy.
Parental advisory. I am going to swear when that speech comes up. It adds to the speach. So, yeah, but we're trying to be clean on this podcast. But like that, I think is actually a very important part of the speech. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Jeremy.
But no, like, so we start to see that strength, and I think we're starting to see Ted really kind of be like, okay, now I want to win. Like, I think, he's always wanted to win. I think he really means it now. I think having the staff of Beard and Roy kind of be like, hey, Ted, like, get it together. Like, let's, kind of find a way to win. I think we're going to see a new Jamie Tart come towards the end of this end of the year. I think Roy,
Jamie Tart.
He's the number 9 for a reason. We love Danny. Danny's just an absolute, bundle of joy. But I think something's going to happen. Now they're losing a lot. They're on a skid. They dropped to 9th place. We saw it in the table. So it's like, okay, it's not going to have them win the league. I think it's really impossible. Maybe West Ham do, but maybe there's an FA Cup on the line. Maybe there's some kind of like, let's get a trophy. Like, I think it's going to end with Ted lifting a trophy, series done, finito. Jamie gets that goal at Wembley. That's my prediction now. But you have a point.
So I was thinking about this. It might be a cup, but it also might be top 4 final game of the season against West Ham. Zava signs for West Ham. Yeah,
Whoa,
I know
that
it's a
would
little, I know that's a little
be,
far fetched, but like
yeah.
that's where my head was going. Like
Huh.
they get on a roll, they're actually in contention for either top four, or if they want to be really dramatic with the show. I think the show's probably like, if I had to guess, the show might have one more season in him where Ted actually goes for that title.
I hope
But
so.
I think this one's going to be where he's like on the edge of top four. Maybe he's in, I don't know if they're going to do like Europa League and like maybe those lesser competitions, but the potential for European competition and like you mentioned, one of those Carabao Cups, one of those would be really interesting. And I don't think we've seen the last of Zaba, even though he retired.
Yeah, and because we see them like get the rights to Premier League. What if they got the rights to UCL? Like that'd be pretty cool. And I know, like when this show first started, when Brendan Hunt and Jason Sudeikis made the show, they said 3 seasons. That's it. We don't want to because you see it with shows. You and I are both Game of Thrones fans, and we saw what happened with season 8. We don't have to remind everybody.
That one's different though, because that show didn't drag on. They just flubbed the final season.
But right,
Like
I think they just don't want to
they don't want to ruin
end
it.
it on a bad note, right? Like 1 and 2 have been perfect so far. 3, the only bad note I've had was last week's episode where I was like, like I don't like the whole red card, red card, red card, and then
There's a point to it though. I understood it.
Yeah, like okay, like we're not going to take any crap from no one, right? But before I end my rant, we have to talk about Nate. I want you to talk about Nate and his deal with Anastasia. She leaves Nate at the restaurant. I love that he still goes to Taste of Athens. It's a favorite restaurant. And then he finally gets Jade. This whole time, it's been since season 2, and Jade finally talks to him, sits down. They bring over the baklava. But Sammy, you have no I don't feel anything for Nate, but you, my friend, have a burning passion of hatred for Nate.
Yeah, I heard that baklava is divine.
Yeah, that's a line. That's a line. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I saw that developing that she was going to come over, and I started yelling at my screen like, I want him to suffer. Like, I don't think he deserves any happiness until he actually mans up and apologizes to Ted. Because the way he handled his exit was so disastrous, so poor. He needs to apologize to Rebecca also, I believe, for siding with Rupert, even though he was witness to signs of Rupert being a not so great human being. So I think that both of those need to happen, but I also just don't think he, as a character, since the end of season 1, has done enough good to where he actually deserved to see good come out on the other side. And here he is ahead of managing the top club in England while also having a date with a celebrity and then getting the girl he's been interested in. Like that all doesn't jive with me because I don't think as a character he's deserved that. Jeremy, your finger was raised.
Yeah, so there is a point that I want to make. So if we go back and watch the season 3 trailer that Apple TV put out, there is a scene where so I'm going to spoil something because it's obvious. It's really not a spoiler because if you watch the trailer,
I don't watch the trailers because I think they're spoilers. So
okay, do you not want me to say anything then?
I don't think we should say it. I think we should let this one go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should let that go.
Man, all I'm going to say is I'm going to say one thing. I think we get another moment I think we get that apology that you're looking for between Ned. I'm combining the two names, Ted and Nate. And there's also a scene with him and Henry at a West Ham game. I'm just going to put that out there. It's not a spoiler, but Henry comes back to England at some point. With Michelle, without Michelle, that's up for let's wait and see. But there is a moment and Henry is actually wearing a West Ham kit. Just gonna throw that out there.
I feel like that was definitely a spoiler. But
it's not. It's public information.
Yeah, but the thing is, not everyone is going to watch the trailers because in my mindset, the trailers are spoiled. Because trailers in general, the way trailers work is they try to show you stuff to make you interested in a show. I'm already interested in a show. I don't need the sales pitch. So I don't need to see that overexciting stuff. So So I'm going to hold a grudge against Jeremy for a while. If you want to join me on that boat, you're more than welcome to.
Right.
But I think that'll wrap it for our Ted Lasso conversation. Let's go into our fun final segment. Starting with me with the first 3 segments. Your fun game in history. This one's a fun one. I woke up in a terrible mood this morning. Really what I was thinking is, damn, I hate Arsenal. So the game of
you think that every day though.
That's true, but like a little more so than normal. So I decided to look up a game that was terrible for Arsenal. So we're going back to 2010, April 6th. It's the Champions League quarterfinal, and Messi had a day. And yeah, I had a lot of time looking this one up. Messi had 4 goals in the second leg at Camp Nou and sent Arsenal packing. And it was fantastic. I loved every moment of that little bit of research. Obviously, having listened to if you guys listened to episode 1, I wasn't really into soccer at that point. So this was a great bit of history for me to digest and just see a little bit of Arsenal suffering because they're at such a high point right now. I needed to see them knock down a peg just for my own mental stability because Spurs are such a question mark right now. But moving on, here are my locks of the week. Chelsea's involved in 2 of them, and they're losing both of them. Brighton over Chelsea, Real Madrid over Chelsea, and AC Milan over Napoli in the Champions League as well. Those are the 3 results I'm going for my locks. I was 2-1 coming into this week, so we'll see how that goes. And then my 3 stars. Rodri is going to get the first one for his absolute worldie against Bayern Munich. That first goal was a heck of a strike. I thought it was beautiful. Sonny gets the second one for his 100th Premier League goal, all in a Spurs kit. Really, it's hard to not be happy for him when he hits a milestone like that. So obviously I have to slot him in at 2. And final, even though Man U ended up kind of squandering the result, one to give it to Sabitzer for his random brace to start today. So he's going to get my final star for his out of actually left, right, center field brace today. Jeremy, we'll hand it over to your random player of the week.
Okay, so we're going to start with the random footballer. To all of my fellow listeners of the 90+2 podcast and fellow FIFA players like myself and Sammy, you remember this name. You were playing Ultimate Team in FIFA 15 and 16, and you really needed a player in your squad to kind of bolster your attack with some speed. I'm going to give you a name that you're going to be like, wow, I remember him. Victor Ibarbo. This guy from Colombia, I remember just having even his gold card, Sammy, was just elite. He might have been like maybe 80, 81, 82 overall, like for his base gold card. But this guy was awesome. So we'll run through his career. So obviously he starts his youth in Colombia, plays for Colombian powerhouse Atlético Nacional. Shout out Mr. C, my Spanish teacher. He was a big Nacional fan. Then he gets the move over to Cagliari, which is where his FIFA card became prominent. Then he's had some loans. So he had a loan in 2015 he went to Roma, then 2 years to Watford. Then he went back to Atlético Nacional, the team that he started his professional career with. Then he went over to Athens to play for Panathinaikos. Then he's made his move over to let me get this correctly right now, he's now over in Japan. So he moved over to Asia, which is now where he's ended up his career. So he played for Sagan Tosu, which is where his last loan was under his contract at Cagliari. And now he's currently at Varen Nagasaki. So he's had some caps. He has 15 caps with the Colombian national team, only 1 goal in his best career. I mean, he only had 15 goals, but I feel like this guy was a better FIFA player than he was a professional footballer. But he's still kicking. He's 32 years of age right now. So I just wanted to give a little bit of this was a nostalgia pick for kind of like your Huntelaar pick from last week. But Sammy, it's time to enter the Thunderdome of random club 10 questions. Yep. Sir, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I am ready.
Right. Okay. I am going to count on my hands. So question
so we don't mess it up this time.
Yes. No more asterisks. That's on me. So here we go. Question 1.
Is he from the MLS?
This team is not from the MLS. Okay. Question 2.
Is this team in currently, or have they been in at any point this season a European competition?
let me clarify. I should have done my homework. I have the team up, but let me just, just to make sure. So in this season?
Yes, in the 2022-23 season, have they played in a European competition?
Yes.
Okay. And since you had to think about it, I'm going to knock off mentally. I don't think it's the Prem. I don't think it's La Liga because I feel like you're pretty aware of that league. So is this a League Un team?
That was question 3. And
Yep.
no, it is not a Ligue 1 team.
So now you Bundesliga team.
Question 4. Yes. So now
okay.
You have 6 guesses. So Bundesliga. Question 5.
Since they were in a European competition, that means they finished in the top 7 from last season. So my question is, there yellow in their badge?
There is not yellow in their badge.
So now, okay. So I have 3 teams that I think it could be. And if it's not one of these 3 teams, I don't know. So I'm just going to guess these 3 teams.
Okay. So these count as questions,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay.
Colm.
So,
Is it Colm?
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
FC Cologne. Yeah, they were in Europa League. They were in the group stages with Partizan and Nice in France, and then Slovako. So,
dude, that yellow question helps so much because it took off Dortmund, Leverkusen, and Union Berlin. So it was down to Leipzig, Freiburg, and Köln.
I was like, okay. My thought process was, you're gonna pick like red and kind of figure it out between Cologne, Mainz, Frankfurt, Berlin, but yellow was smart. So go with the least amount of colors, right? And then, kind of kick it off from there. But well done. So you're 2-0 with an asterisk still. Well,
yep, you're 2-0 as well.
We're both 2-0.
If we both go 3-0, I think we cut it down to 8 questions. I want to make this a little more contestable. Okay. But if we both go 3-0, I think we should make it a little harder.
Fair enough.
But it's time for a debate before I give my first Ted Lasso quote of the season.
Yeah, but it's also fitting. Our debate is Ted Lasso themed, just because I really think you and I kind of really appreciated this episode. Not from like the comedy standpoint, but just like, seeing a person like you and I who deals with, struggles mentally, kind of overcome that for like really one of the first times in his life. So I figure our debate would be kind of lighthearted. It's not a start 'em, sit 'em, cut 'em, but it's a question that we actually asked a few of our classmates this earlier this week. If you had to pick, say if you were purchasing an AFC Richmond jersey, which I eventually want, Nike, please let them go on sale. If you had to put a name on the back of your kit, who would it be and why? I think I know your answer.
So here's the thing. I have a player answer, but I first want to say if there was any possible way to get a kit with Beard's name on it, I would do it.
Whoa.
So, because I think he's my favorite character. He's my favorite character in the entire show.
Beard's great.
So, want to leave that there. But in terms of an actual AFC Richmond player, that one's tough. I think it's very, very difficult for me to justify anything other than Roy Kent. But if it wasn't Roy Kent, it would be Danny Rojas.
Nice. Why Danny? What do you love about Danny?
So Roy first, in terms of, I honestly, since we were talking about like comparisons to actual players this year, I love the Roy Keane kind of playoff. I looked more into it, and it is definitely there. But he's just kind of that like gritty, like just that something about his mentality. One, he's hysterical too. Like that dry sense of humor is like right up my alley. But like his relationship with Jamie and like his side of it in particular, I think is hysterical. So he's just, in terms of an entertainment factor, he's number 1. And the only thing I have to say about Danny is football is life. Football is death, but football is also life. So
cream. For me, I've stuck with my guns. Now, again, it's really hard to not pick Roy, but I am going to pick someone other than Roy. And it's a player that, to me, I see a lot of. Not only I think I see the most of myself in Ted. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head with that as well. But someone who I also kind of see, especially with the relationship that he has with his family back home, to me, it's Sam Obasanya. This guy is an absolute sweetheart of a person. I tend to kind of be a person like Sam, who's just very loyal, loves his teammates, loves his friends. I would love to own a restaurant myself one day. I really want to open up a Scottish restaurant because there's none. There's other than fish and chip shops, there's not a lot. So I would love to bring back this old bar from New York City and kind of bring it back one day if I ever become successful. But how can you not love Sam? Sam to me is just a ball of joy. I love the episode where him and Rebecca go on their date and Isaac gives him the haircut from season 2. It's such an awesome scene. I love the tension that he has with Ted early on in season 2 when they're bringing back Jamie and he's like, nope. And he curses at Ted and he's like, I'm sorry. Like, well, I didn't mean to say that, just apologizes right away. But overall, a talented player. And he's actually, fun fact, him and Jamie are the highest rated players right now on my FIFA 23 AFC Richmond career mode. They're both 94 overall, and they're both very young players. So, but how can you not love Sam Obisanya? I would rock a 24 Sam Obisanya kit.
That's fair. So for those of you that aren't watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, I took off my tie because I want to loosen up the old throat for this long monologue for Ted Lasso.
Wait, can I introduce you the way you introduced me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we just we have our Ted Lasso quote of the day to wrap things up. Sammy, take it away.
Belief doesn't just happen because you hang something on the wall. It comes from in here, up here, and down here. The only problem is we've all got so much junk floating around through us. A lot of times we end up getting in our own way. Crap like envy or fear, shame. I don't want to mess around with that shit anymore. You know what I mean? Do you? You know what I want to mess around with? The belief that I matter, regardless of what I do or don't achieve. Or the belief that we all deserve to be loved, whether we've been hurt or hurt somebody else. Or what about the belief of hope? That's what I want to mess with. Believing that things can get better, that I can get better, that we will get better. You believe in yourself, you believe in one another. That's fundamental to being alive. If you can do that, if each of you can truly do that, can't nobody rip that apart.
Dude, that speech when he delivered it, like I kind of like, so I watch it late at night and I watch it here like on my couch. When he started giving that speech and he was ripping up the sign, I kind of went like, I sat up a little bit and I went, oh, this is like serious Ted. I like serious Ted a lot. Serious
Ted. I was on my feet by the end of that speech, like slightly crying as well, but
yeah,
I was on my feet.
I got choked up a little bit, especially with obviously him and Henry having their moment too. Anything that happens with his son, just because like I'm a softie. I really am. I'm such a softie. But that was powerful AF, man. That was such a great speech.
But welcome. That was the 90+2 podcast. I almost said welcome in.
Welcome back. Hey,
welcome back. That was just like an hour and 20 minutes, but welcome back. No, but thank you guys for listening. That was the 90+2 podcast. I'm Sammy St.Jean. That's Jeremy Strianos. This is the crossroad between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point. That was episode 4, and well, we'll see you guys next week.